What is up, guys? Welcome back to my channel. Today, we're going to be getting into my 2022 NBA Power Rankings. Yes, the season starts in 2 days. It is crazy to think about, but we are here in NBA position, so it's very fun to think about. But anyway, let's get into these Power Rankings. Starting out with this bad tier. 3 teams in this tier. We're going to get into the number 30 team, the worst team in the NBA, I do think, is the Indiana Pacers coming into this year. The Pacers, they didn't make too much moves this offseason. A lot of teams, I think, has a lot of young talent. Pacers, clearly, it's time for them just to – it seems like they are just going to tank this year. It seems like they're going to be in contention for that number 1 pick. And I don't really see the Pacers really doing much this year. A lot of the other teams, like the next couple teams, I could see like really surprising. Pacers, I just feel like that they're going to be staying in this bad tier for like the whole year, very similar to what happened last year. So that's my take on Indiana right now. Let's move on to number 29. We're going to have the Houston Rockets. Houston, we have a problem here in Houston, but yeah, I mean, the Rockets, I don't think things are going to be too much different than last year. They didn't make a lot of moves this offseason to help develop their young players. I believe John Wall was on their team last year. I don't even know, but he's gone now. He's to the Clippers, so that doesn't help them either. But then again, I think Green could have a big year for this Houston team and a big second year where a lot of players pop out. So he could do that. You never know. But, yeah, right now, Houston, I don't think that they're going to be any good team this year or anything. It's time to continue forwarding this rebuild. And let's move on to number 28. We're going to have the Orlando Magic. Orlando, very similar to Houston. They got Suggs. They got a lot of young players. They got their new player that they drafted this year, someone from out of Gonzaga, I think, or Duke. They got him. So, yeah, they have a lot of young talent there. I could very much see this ranking, getting this team back up to in the hunt tier when it's all said and done. But, yeah, right now, Orlando, too young. They didn't make too many moves this offseason. So, I still don't think that Orlando's going to be any threat, really, this season at all. So, that is the 3 bad teams in the NBA this season, in my opinion. Let's move on to the in the hunt tier. We're going to have a few, like about 7 teams in this tier. So let's get into it. Starting with the number 27 team, we're going to go with the Oklahoma City Thunder. If I can find them, there they are. Thunder, obviously they have a lot of draft picks, the most in the NBA. It's still rebuild time in Thunder, but they got Gilgeous-Alexander. They got some young pieces there that they drafted. I know their center got a big injury, so he's going to be out for a while. The center that they drafted out of Gonzaga, so that's tough for them. But yeah, I think this team's going to be very similar to last year. Last year they were pretty competitive of a basketball team, so I think that the Thunder are going to be, may surprise some people with not being down in that bad tier. But I think that this team could be competitive, and I could see a way for them being into the play-in. So that's where I have them. Let's move on to number 26. We're going to have the San Antonio Spurs. The only reason they're really not in the bad tier is because of coaching. I trust Greg Popovich too much to not get a team like in contention for the play-in tournament by the end of the year. This team does not have a lot of talent at all. They don't have Murray now after trading them to the Falcons, so that's rough for the Spurs. But yeah, like I said, Greg Popovich I think is a good head coach, one of the best ever, and he's going to be able to lead this team to a few wins this year and be in contention for the play-in tournament. And that's really what I think this San Antonio team is going to be for a while. So, obviously, Greg Popovich, he's getting up there in age, so he's going to have to retire at some point. I have no idea when, but yeah, I don't think the game's passed him by or anything. I think he's still a very good head coach. Let's move on to number 25. We're going to have the Utah Jazz. Some people might be a little bit surprised by this ranking, but not being down in the bad tier. But yeah, Utah, they got some pieces. They obviously traded in the meat of both those Rudy and Donovan trades were were draft picks. But yeah, they got Colin Sexton out of it, marketing. They got Vanderbilt, Beasley, and on top of that, they still have Mike Conley, Jordan Clarkson. So I still think this is a solid veteran type team. I know they have a lot of young pieces, and I think that with that, they're going to be at least a competitive enough to be in the play-in tournament. They don't have their head coach Quinn Snyder there anymore. I think that's it's a question mark how good their new one's going to be. I forgot his name already, but yeah, the Boston Celtics assistant from last year. So yeah, we're going to see what the Jazz look like. This ranking could completely dip and be a bad team, but I could see a way for I think the Jazz are going to be surprised some people this year and actually have not too bad of a year. Let's move on to number 24. We're going to have the Detroit Pistons. Cade Cunningham, I have faith in Cade Cunningham that he's going to take a big step this season for the Detroit Pistons. And then they traded for Bojan Bogdanovic from the Jazz, who are a team of just above them. I think that's going to help. And I think, Bojan's an underrated player in this league, in my opinion. I think he brings a level of scoring where Cade Cunningham doesn't have to just carry this whole team. I think Detroit Pistons are going to be competitive. They're going to take a step up this season and hopefully keep developing Cade and have a good, a solid enough team, maybe even surprise some people and sneak into the play-in tournament where I could see that happening. So that is the Pistons. Let's move on to number 23. We're going to have the Sacramento Kings here. Kings, every year, man, I just say okay, the Kings are going to be, they have the talent around these players. Can they finally get it done and actually be a playoff team? And every year, the Kings just underwhelm. They're the most irrelevant franchise, it feels like in all of sports, honestly. This Kings team just sucks. But I do think that the Kings are going to have a good roster, a good enough roster that, if things can click together, if they can finally get some things together, this team can be a play-in tournament team. We're just going to have to see if things work out. It's obviously doesn't look good for down there in Sacramento, but we're going to see with the Kings. All right, let's move on to one team in the play-in tournament from the West, since the East I do think is a little bit better top to bottom than the West this year. We're going to go with the Portland Trailblazers, the first team in this play-in tournament tier, and the 10th best team in the West, in my opinion, this year. With teams like the Jazz falling off, Spurs trading away Murray, I couldn't think of anyone else to put in here. I think that and the Kings, I thought about the Kings, but I do think that the Blazers have that superstar and Damian Lillard still there. He's going to be able to carry this team enough. I think that 10 spot, which is wide open right now in the West, I think. And I think that the Trailblazers are going to sneak away with it. But like I said, I could see the Kings coming out with this. I could see the Jazz, the Spurs, even the Thunder coming out with a spot. It's tight. But I have Portland right there for now. So, let's move on to number 21. We're going to have the Washington Wizards. They extended Bradley Beal, of course, so he's going to be there for a long time. And he's going to bring his team to be competitive. I think they have a decent amount of talent around him to be a competitive team and be in the hunt as of this year. But that Eastern Conference, like I said, is better this year, in my opinion, than the West. So that's really the main point here. Those are the Wizards right now. Let's move on to number 20, the final in the hunt team. We're going to have the New York Knicks. Knicks, obviously, they probably wanted to go out and get Donovan Mitchell, but couldn't get it done. They signed Jalen Brunson to a deal, who had an excellent playoff. So hopefully he can carry that success over here to New York. I'm not sure if it's going to be enough, though. The Knicks, I still think that this team is going to be a competitive team this year. I do think that they have enough talent with I totally forgot his name. Their power forward, whatever his name is, I cannot remember his name for the life of me. And R.J. Barrett and Jalen Brunson. I think this team is good enough to do that, but the same Knicks team I think we've seen besides that weird year a couple years ago where the Knicks made the playoffs. but I do think the Knicks team is going to be solid enough to be in the hunt for this in this East. So that is the in the hunt tier. Let's move on to the play-in tournament tier. Starting with the number 19, we're going to have the New Orleans Pelicans. Zion Williamson, hopefully he can stay healthy for New Orleans. We obviously know how big of a piece he can be for them. And yeah, around them, they still have these solid pieces around Zion to build this team. They got Ingram, they got all these pieces. So Zion's obviously the big building block. So I think this is going to be a very similar year to what they had last year. Just a solid play-in tournament team. Zion Williamson is still unproven. He's got to prove that he can be a solid team. But yeah, New Orleans is kind of stuck in a weird spot here where like, okay, is Zion going to be our guy? We know he has the talent, but he's very injury prone. Can he take a step this year? I think they extended him. I'm not sure. But yeah, New Orleans, they got to be better than this year. They got to be better than what they've shown. We're going to see if Zion can take them to to an extra step this year. So that's the number 19 team for me is New Orleans. Let's move on to number 18. We're going to have the Charlotte Hornets. LaMelo Ball staying there. And I think he's going to have a very similar season to last year with this Hornets team. This Hornets team didn't make too many moves this offseason to take note of. And yeah, I think this team's the 10th best team in the East by far. It's tight between these next team, but I do think that they're clearly better than the Knicks and the Wizards and the Pistons and all those teams down there that are in contention. Ball, they got a solid enough unit around him. Ball's going to be the centerpiece for this team, and hopefully he can keep leading his team to have another solid year down there in Charlotte. Moving on to number 17, we're going to have the Toronto Raptors. Raptors, clearly a very well-coached basketball team. Their head coach is a very good head coach, and the Raptors every year just seem to be a solid enough team to be good. I do believe they were the 5 seed last season. I don't think that they're going to have that much success this season. They just don't have as much talent as some of these other teams. Siakam, obviously a good player for them. But yeah, the Raptors, just a very well-coached basketball team, but I don't think that there's some big contender really at all this year. They're kind of in a weird spot right now where like, are you going to be able to contend with this roster? You're going to probably need to get a superstar at some point, but like you don't really want to blow it up because this team's still a good basketball team. So that's kind of a weird spot for the Raptors. But yeah, they're going to be at 17 for right now. Let's move on to number 16, the Chicago Bulls entering into their second year. Chicago. Wait, let me check something first. So yeah, the Chicago Bulls in their third year with this big four per se with Zach LaVine, Lonzo Ball, Vucevic, and DeMar DeRozan. And yeah, things weren't as good as they were hoping for last season, but I still think that they have a lot of talent on that side of the basketball, that they're going to be a very good team. It's a big separation, I think, from 16 and 17 right here with the Bulls and the Raptors. I think this Bulls team, this team could take a bigger leap than last year with this team. But we're going to have to see what happens with Chicago down there at number 16. Moving on to number 15, we're going to have the Atlanta Hawks. Atlanta made that big splash move for Murray. I think that's going to be a big deal for Atlanta. There's a lot of good teams, though, in the NBA this year, so I do think that there's still a play-in tournament team with Murray. It doesn't really help their defensive problems. It just really helps for another scoring option to help out Trae Young. I do think this offense is going to be explosive down here. But yeah, I think they're going to need some better defensive play from that side of the ball for this team to be a playoff contender. Have another solid year like they did a few years ago where they made it to the championship round, the AFC championship. The East championship game. Or the Eastern Conference Finals. I'm just thinking about NFL stuff right now. That's my bad, guys. But yeah, the Hawks, I do think, are a very good team this year. Very, very close between the Bulls and the Hawks right now. But I do think that the Hawks are going to have the slight edge. We're going to have to see Trae Young and Murray. Hopefully, they can take a big step this season and help that team win. Moving on to number 14, we're going to have the Los Angeles Lakers. Yeah, LA. It's a tough team to rank because obviously they have AD, they have LeBron, they have all these players on just a lot of good players down there. Patrick Beverley was traded there, Russell Westbrook. But can LeBron James and AD stay healthy through this year? They're going to need them too, and they're going to need to actually make the play-in tournament this year because that was ridiculous last season. So this team could have a very good year and jump back up into the contenders tier, or this team could be just like last year, flat, bad team just overall and just not really a good basketball team. So hopefully they can, AD and LeBron can get back to form for them. I'm not complaining if the Lakers do bad. I am definitely not. I don't really like to see the Lakers do good, but yeah, we're going to have to see. LA, I don't know what to think because they're just not too good of a team down there. I mean, they just haven't shown that they could be too good of a team from last year. We're going to have to see if they do good. Moving on to number 13. The Minnesota Timberwolves made that big move to go get Rudy Gobert. Now this big lineup here, Karl Anthony Towns, Rudy Gobert, Anthony Edwards, D'Angelo Russell, all these pieces here. Can it come together to bring a very good year to Minnesota? It's going to be interesting. That is for dang sure. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with Rudy and Karl Anthony Towns. It's going to be a big man lineup. That lineup, they really gave up a lot to go and get Rudy. I'm not mad with it if they think that they can be a contender right now. I'm not mad with it. They definitely have the talent, but that Western Conference is stacked right now with a lot of good teams up there. It's tough to climb up these rankings in the West, so I just don't think that the Timberwolves are going to be as good of a team as a lot of people anticipate, and that's why I do think that they're still going to slightly be a play-in tournament team right there. So, yeah, that is the play-in tournament tier right there. That's the biggest tier, I think. Wait, maybe not, but that is the Timberwolves right there. Let's advance on to the playoff tier. Starting out with the number 12 team, we're going to have the Cleveland Cavaliers, another team that got a not superstar player, I guess, but a star player in Donovan Mitchell. Coming to Cleveland. You know, this team was already very young in the first place. Just had to really give up Colin Sexton and some picks. I think that the Cleveland Cavaliers, with Donovan Mitchell, I think that this team could very much be a contender. I think Donovan's going to bring a big piece to this team. They got a solid defense. They're very young. Darius Garland going to take a good step down there, not having to be the main scoring option. This Cleveland team, I think, is going to have a good year. I really wasn't too high in Cleveland last year. This year, I'm pretty high. I think this Cleveland team is going to have a good year. But, yeah, the Hawks, the Bulls, they're still two very solid teams that could surpass them down there. So, yeah, let's move on to number 11. We're going to have the Dallas Mavericks. Probably a little bit surprising. Dallas making it to the Western Conference Finals last year. I really like Dallas with Luka, but I don't think he's going to be enough to carry this whole team. He's a phenomenal basketball player, but yeah, they lost Jalen Brunson this year. I know they have a solid a decent enough unit around Luka to be a solid team, but I don't think it's enough to be a contender. They didn't really go and get someone else to help out Luka. So I think this team's going to be a similar team to last year, just not going to have enough to be a solid contender. That's just my thoughts on the Dallas Mavericks right now. Hopefully they can prove me wrong and have a good season. So that's Dallas. Number 10, probably going to be a little bit weird for some people to see this team out of the contender tier. It's going to be the Philadelphia 76ers. The Sixers. Wow. Yeah, this was tough for me to leave them out because they obviously have James Harden, Joel Embiid, Tobias Harris. This whole lineup is solid. They've been a very good basketball team for a good amount of time. But, I mean, they really haven't shown that they can do anything in the playoffs. This past year got eliminated in the conference semifinals. So, that they got to prove that they can do something in the regular season. They've strung together a lot of good seasons in a row. Don't get me wrong, but there is so many contenders right now, and there's got to be a few playoff teams because I can't just have only 2 playoff teams and a bunch of contenders. So I do think that the Dallas Mavericks the Philadelphia 76ers are going to fall into that category of a playoff team. And I just don't think Philly's going to have enough to win a championship this year. So that's my opinion on the Sixers. Let's advance on to the contender tier. Starting with the number 9 team, the Denver Nuggets. Jamal Murray obviously coming back. Big addition for the Nuggets to get back Jamal Murray. I think that's going to be big for them. They got Nikola Jokic, of course. They got a solid piece around him. And that's going to be enough, I think, for this team. Finally, they were out with Murray for a while, but Murray looked very good when he was in a few years back in that bubble. Hopefully he can be like that player for them, because if he is, man, this team is deadly down there in Denver. So watch out for the Nuggets to have a very solid year. That is the Nuggets right there. Let's move on to number 28. We're going to have the Brooklyn Nets. Very similar to the Lakers, just they need to string together some wins. I do think that this Nets team is a contender still with KD and Kyrie. They just got to mesh together. KD. And the thing about the Lakers is they've proven that they cannot stay healthy. Nets have proven that they I don't know, man. I just think that the Nets team, KD and Kyrie, if they can mesh together, have a good season, and this defense can step it up and actually be a solid team coming to the playoffs. They got really obliterated last year against the Celtics in the playoffs, so they got to step it up this year. That is for sure, and hopefully they can. I do think that they will, and I think they are a contender. Let's move on to number 7. We're going to have the Phoenix Suns. The Suns, very disappointing loss last year in the conference semis. You hate to see it if you're a Suns fan, because this team they came so close a couple years ago against the Bucks, just couldn't quite get the job done. And then this previous year just came up short against the Dallas Mavericks. So, yeah, Phoenix, they obviously clearly have the talent. Chris Paul, Devin Booker, they have that talent to be a successful team this year and a championship caliber team. But they got to prove that they can win in the postseason. They've been one of the best teams in the league for the past 2 years. I think the best record team in the league for the past 2 years. So they got to prove that they can keep that rolling and be a championship team. Let's move on to number 6. We're going to have the Miami Heat. The Heat are the 6th best team in the league, in my opinion, with Jared Butler down there. Oh, Jimmy Butler, not Jared Butler. Sorry. But yeah, Miami Heat. It's going to be the same thing that we see. I think last year they didn't really make too many moves to improve. But yeah, I think this team's going to be a solid enough team this season and be a team that can contend. And yeah, I don't know really what else to say for the Heat. They're very similar to last year. Bam Adebayo down there, and they're going to be a very good team. Let's move on to number 5, the Memphis Grizzlies. Memphis, obviously, there's all these young pieces. Were able to get that playoff experience behind them last year with Ja and all of these players. And I think that playoff experience is gonna carry into this year. This is gonna be one of the best teams in the league. The only unfortunate teams, the Clippers are back healthy, so I don't think that they're gonna be quite the second best record team in the West. But we're gonna see what happens with Memphis. They have a very good core. Ja Morant, all these other young players, they continue to get older and better. Hopefully they can step it up and have an even better year this year, which would be saying a lot. So congratulations to the Grizzlies. Let's move on to number 4. We're going to have the Boston Celtics, the runner-up for the championship this year, just couldn't quite win against the Warriors. This Celtics defense is elite down here. They didn't lose too many pieces this year, so I still think that they're going to be a very good team this season and potentially a championship team. Jason Tatum going to have a very good year, and all these players are going to be very good with Jaylen Brown and this solid defense. Hopefully that they can get over the hump and bring a championship. But I'm not complaining if they don't. They've had too many down there. So moving on right here, we're going to have the number 3 team, the Milwaukee Bucks. Giannis Antetokounmpo, the championship team from a couple years ago. Going to be the number 1, one of the top tier teams this season. You obviously know this Bucks team is going to be coming out swinging with Antetokounmpo and all of these pieces that they have. Milton, this team just a very, I think this team's a very easier team to predict. You're going to know that they're going to be a good team. They've proven it for the past few years. You're going to know they're going to be one of the best teams in the league. And I do think that they are the best team in the whole Eastern Conference this season. So that is my opinion on the Milwaukee Bucks. Hopefully Giannis can get a second championship. I love Giannis. Who doesn't? He's such a good person and such a good basketball player. So that is my opinion on the Bucks. Let's move on to number 2. We're going to have the LA Clippers. Clippers finally getting back Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. Well, Paul George was playing last year, but Kawhi Leonard coming back this season. It is time for them to make their run at the championship like they couldn't do a couple years or in the bubble and a couple years ago. Hopefully they can string together a very good year. We obviously knew last year was not going to be their full form. So Kawhi Leonard, he's elite. Hopefully he can prove that he's still elite. He wants to bring his 3rd championship to this team. Maybe he can do it beyond, just like James did with the Lakers a few years back. So that is the Clippers, a very solid basketball team. Hopefully they can keep getting better. They actually added John Wall too. So if John Wall can be a good player, he obviously has the tools. He could be a good one. But that leaves the number 1 team, the NBA champions from last year, Stephen Curry. A couple years ago when this team just sucked, I was not expecting them to be on the mountaintop again. But this team, Steph, Klay Thompson, Jordan Poole, Green, all these players just have it in them to be the best team in the league. And they won the championship last year. And I'm going to keep that going forward for them to be the number 1 team in the NBA. So anyway, guys, thank you all for watching. As you can see, a lot of contenders this year. I can see a lot of teams winning the championship and taking it home to their city or their state. But anyway, guys, comment down below your power rankings. Anyway, peace.